Hey everyone! What a wild turn of events, right? Just when Olivia thought her day couldn't get any crazier, fate had other plans. But what happens next? Will she escape the chaos or fall deeper into Nathan's world? Tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss tomorrow's thrilling episode, it's going to be unforgettable. See you there. The sun was barely rising over the city skyline when Olivia Carter stepped out of the subway station, clutching a neatly organized folder to her chest. Today was important, her final interview for an accounting job at Kingston Enterprises, one of the most prestigious corporations in the country. She had prepared endlessly, practiced every possible question in the mirror, and even picked out her most professional outfit. Everything was set. But fate had different plans. As she hurried through the sleek marble-floored lobby of the Kingston headquarters, her mind raced with last-minute thoughts. Stay calm, Olivia. This is just another step toward your future. She took a deep breath, adjusting her blazer. But just as she turned the corner into the hallway, something unexpected happened. A strong pair of arms suddenly wrapped around her waist from behind, pulling her into an unfamiliar embrace. Her breath hitched. "You have a situation," a deep voice murmured against her ear. Confused and frozen in place, Olivia's heart pounded. What was going on? Who was this? Before she could react, the man let go just as quickly as he had grabbed her. Olivia spun around, ready to demand answers, but her words got stuck in her throat when she saw him. Tall. Handsome. Overwhelmingly confident. He shrugged off his designer coat and casually tied it around her waist, his eyes flickering with amusement. "You're welcome," he said, smirking. Olivia's confusion deepened. Then it hit her. She had a wardrobe malfunction. A horrifying realization dawned, her skirt had ripped in the back without her noticing. Heat rushed to her cheeks. Mortified, she clutched the coat tighter and muttered a barely audible, "Thank you." She didn't stay to hear his reply. Instead, she turned on her heel and bolted. The humiliation was too much to bear. Inside the ladies' restroom, Olivia exhaled sharply, trying to collect herself. "What just happened?" she whispered. She had planned every step of her morning, yet here she was, hiding in a bathroom, wearing a stranger's coat like an emergency blanket. As she regained her composure, a new horror surfaced in her mind. In her rush to escape, her resume folder had slipped from her grip. It had her name, her contact details, everything. Meanwhile, back in the hallway, Nathaniel Kingston, CEO of Kingston Enterprises, picked up a single sheet of paper that had fallen from the folder. His eyes scanned the name printed at the top. Olivia Carter. A slow, amused grin spread across his lips as he looked at the photo attached. "Interesting," he murmured. He turned, walking toward his office, twirling her resume between his fingers. This day had just become a lot more intriguing. Olivia straightened her blazer and took another deep breath. She had no choice but to push past the embarrassing encounter and focus on what mattered, nailing this job interview. With renewed determination, she made her way to the HR department, hoping that losing a page of her resume wouldn't cost her the position. She was ushered into the interview room, where a long table and 3 executives awaited her. She shook hands with them, introduced herself, and sat down. Just as she was about to begin, the door swung open. The air in the room shifted. A tall figure entered, moving with the confidence of someone who owned the place. Olivia's stomach dropped. It was him. The man who had caught her off guard in the hallway. The one who had wrapped his coat around her. Nathaniel Kingston. Her boss. The CEO of Kingston Enterprises. Her pulse pounded in her ears as Nathaniel took the seat at the head of the table, his sharp eyes locking onto hers. Olivia fought the urge to squirm in her chair. He was staring at her, not in an intimidating way, but with something far worse, amusement. "Miss Carter," Nathaniel said smoothly, flipping open a folder. I see your resume made its way to my desk before you did. Oh. My. God. Heat crept up Olivia's neck. He had her resume? That meant he knew exactly who she was before walking in here. Had he been expecting her? Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, one hand resting against his chin as he studied her. You graduated top of your class. Impressive. But tell me. His voice dipped slightly. How do you handle unexpected situations? The question was innocent enough, except for the glint in his eyes. Was he testing her? Olivia steadied herself, forcing her mind back into professional mode. I believe adaptability is key in any workplace, sir. Challenges are inevitable, but the ability to stay composed and find solutions is what makes an employee valuable. Nathaniel's lips twitched, but he said nothing. One of the executives nodded in approval and continued with the interview. Olivia answered every question with precision, keeping her composure despite feeling like she was under a microscope. When the final question was asked, she exhaled, relieved that she had managed to get through it without completely humiliating herself. Thank you, Ms. Carter, one of the executives said. We'll be in touch soon. Olivia stood up, shaking hands with everyone, but just as she turned to leave, Nathaniel spoke. Actually, he said, his voice smooth but firm, Ms. Carter, I'd like to speak with you privately. A heavy silence fell over the room. The executives exchanged glances but said nothing as they excused themselves, leaving Olivia alone with the man who held her career in his hands. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his piercing gaze. Close the door, Nathaniel said. And just like that, Olivia knew this wasn't over. Olivia hesitated for a brief moment, then reached behind her and slowly pushed the door shut. A faint click echoed in the silent office, sealing her in with Nathaniel Kingston. The air felt heavier now. She took a deep breath and turned to face him. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. You handled that interview well, he finally said, his voice calm but laced with something Olivia couldn't quite place. Thank you, sir, she replied, keeping her tone professional. Nathaniel tilted his head slightly, watching her as if he were studying something far more interesting than just another job candidate. Then, after a long pause, he smirked. You're not going to ask why I wanted to speak with you privately? Olivia's fingers curled slightly at her sides, but she held her ground. I assumed you'd tell me when you were ready. Nathaniel let out a quiet chuckle and shook his head. Smart. He pushed off the desk, stepping closer, and Olivia forced herself not to move, not to show an ounce of discomfort. You left in a hurry earlier, he continued, his eyes flicking to the coat still draped over her arm. Did I make you uncomfortable? Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. I was more focused on making it to my interview on time, Mr. Kingston. His eyes flickered with amusement. So I didn't rattle you at all? She didn't answer. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Nathaniel sighed dramatically and walked toward the window, shoving his hands into his pockets. The late afternoon sunlight cast a golden glow over his sharp features, making him look even more effortlessly powerful. Here's the thing, Olivia, he said, his voice lower now, smoother. I don't believe in coincidences. You running into me, literally, this morning, losing your resume, and then ending up in my interview room? That's interesting. Olivia stiffened. What was he implying? Sir, I assure you, I had no idea, he raised a hand, cutting her off. Relax. I'm not accusing you of anything. But I am curious. Curious? About what? Before she could ask, Nathaniel turned back to face her, his expression suddenly serious. I have one final question for you, Ms. Carter. She nodded, bracing herself. Would you rather work under me, or directly for me? The air in the room seemed to tighten. What? Nathaniel watched her reaction closely, his gaze unwavering. I'm offering you a position as my personal financial advisor, he continued. A higher salary, better benefits, direct access to me. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. this was not how interviews worked. She had applied for a standard position, not whatever this was. Why? She asked, barely keeping her voice steady. Nathaniel smiled. Because you intrigue me. Silence stretched between them. Olivia's mind raced. This wasn't just about her qualifications. It was about something more. And that made working for Nathaniel Kingston both the biggest opportunity and the biggest risk of her life. Olivia sat frozen in her chair, Nathaniel Kingston's words hanging in the air between them. Because you intrigue me. Her pulse pounded in her ears. This wasn't just a job offer, this was something else entirely. And she wasn't sure if that was a good thing. She forced herself to meet his gaze. That's not exactly a standard hiring reason, Mr. Kingston. Nathaniel smirked, stepping closer. I don't do things the standard way, Olivia. That much was obvious. She swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. I appreciate the offer, but before you say no, he interrupted smoothly, I suggest you consider what this means for you. He reached into the pocket of his tailored suit and pulled out a sleek black folder, placing it on the desk in front of her. That's a revised contract, he explained, tapping the folder. It includes your salary, benefits, and a signing bonus that will wipe out your student loans. Olivia's breath hitched. How did he know about that? She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the folder. Why would you do this? Nathaniel exhaled, leaning against the desk beside her. Because I know talent when I see it. And I don't let talent slip through my fingers. There it was again, that intensity in his voice, the kind that sent a shiver down her spine. She glanced at the contract but didn't open it. Something inside her warned her that if she did, she'd be stepping into something far more complicated than a high-paying job. Tell me something, she said, tilting her head. Do all your employees get this kind of personal attention? Nathaniel's smirk deepened, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her, his blue eyes darkening slightly. No, he admitted after a beat. They don't. That single answer sent a warning signal through her mind. She wasn't naive. She knew when a man's interest went beyond business. Olivia inhaled slowly, steadying herself. I'll need time to think about it. Nathaniel nodded. Take the night. But I'll expect an answer by tomorrow morning. His confidence was infuriating. He already thought she would say yes. Without another word, Olivia stood, grabbing the folder. As she turned toward the door, Nathaniel spoke again, his voice lower this time. One more thing, Olivia. She glanced over her shoulder. If you do take this job, be ready, he said, his gaze unwavering. Because working for me isn't easy. And once you step into my world, there's no turning back. Her fingers tightened around the folder. No turning back. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked out of his office, her mind swirling with uncertainty. Outside, the city lights flickered beyond the towering glass windows of Kingston Financial. The world moved on as if nothing had changed. But Olivia knew everything had. And by tomorrow morning, she'd have to decide whether she was willing to risk it all. Olivia barely slept that night. The folder lay untouched on her bedside table, as if opening it would seal her fate. She didn't need to read it to know what it contained: power, control, and an opportunity that most people would kill for. But there was something more beneath the surface. Something unspoken between her and Nathaniel Kingston. And that's what scared her the most. By morning, she had made her decision. When she stepped into Kingston Financial, the atmosphere felt different. Or maybe it was just her. Either way, she knew she was about to cross a line she could never uncross. She took the elevator up to the top floor, the folder clutched tightly in her hands. The doors slid open to reveal Nathaniel, standing in front of the massive glass window that overlooked the city. He turned at the sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor. Good morning, Olivia. His voice was smooth, but his eyes were sharper than ever, like he already knew what she was going to say. She took a steady breath and placed the folder on his desk. I'll take the job. Nathaniel's lips twitched upward, just slightly. I knew you would. Of course, he did. Men like him always assumed they were in control. But let's get one thing straight, she added, crossing her arms. I'm here for the job, not for whatever this is. Nathaniel chuckled, slow and knowing. Whatever this is? He echoed, stepping closer. And what exactly do you think this is, Olivia? She held her ground, refusing to let him unnerve her. I think you like playing games, she said, lifting her chin. But I'm not a game piece. So if you think hiring me gives you some kind of authority over my personal life, you're wrong. Nathaniel's smirk faded just a little. Duly noted. He circled his desk and slid the folder toward himself. In that case, welcome to Kingston Financial. You start now. Now? He raised a brow. You were expecting a grace period? She sighed. Of course not. Fine, she said, adjusting her blazer. Where do I start? Nathaniel's gaze lingered on her for a moment before he walked over to a sleek black door she hadn't noticed before. He pushed it open, revealing a secondary office space, one that was somehow even more luxurious than the main one. This is yours, he said simply. Olivia blinked. This is my office? Unless you prefer to work in the cubicles downstairs, he quipped. She stepped inside, running her fingers along the smooth mahogany desk. Everything about it screamed power, authority, exclusivity. Why are you doing this? She asked, turning to face him. Nathaniel leaned against the doorframe, watching her closely. Because I believe in giving my best people the best tools. His voice was calm, but there was something else there, something unreadable. Then I guess I'd better prove that I deserve it, she said, meeting his gaze. Nathaniel's smirk returned. Yes, Olivia. You should. And just like that, the game had officially begun. Wow, what a ride. From unexpected twists to heart-racing moments, this story had it all. But now, I want to hear from you. What part of the story surprised you the most? Was it Olivia's bold decision to stand up to Nathaniel? Or maybe the undeniable tension between them? Do you think she made the right choice stepping into his world, or is she walking straight into a trap? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, tell us where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far our stories travel. And hey, if you don't want to miss what happens next, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications. Tomorrow's episode is going to be even more intense, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Let's keep the conversation going. I'll be reading your comments and might even feature the best ones in the next video. So, what are you waiting for? Type away.